Hey guys, Free here. Welcome to my channel. So guys, in today's video, actually this will be a series of videos I'll be making around the state of artificial intelligence. So I'll be looking at this report by Nathan and Ian, so Nathan Benesch and Ian Hoggart, and exploring the state of AI for 2019 and the years ahead. As some of you guys know who come to my channel, my name is Fru. I am a technology professional, solutions engineer, and very interested in the field of artificial intelligence and the value it can bring, not just for individuals, but for companies and society as a whole. So this report is really one of the most robust reports that I've read. And I just felt that it's really worth taking it down and breaking it so we can see what exactly was talked about in this report and why you should care about this going forward for your career, for your company, your organization, your teams, or even your country. All right. So, as you guys might know, I'm definitely on LinkedIn, so you can feel free to find me on LinkedIn and connect with me. So, a couple of weeks back, not too long ago, as you can see, this is June 8, 2019, as of the report being released, and making this video a few days or a few weeks after, right after that. All right, so I was on LinkedIn, minding my business and always just looking around, searching, just trying to stay up to date with what is happening in the industry. What are the latest things that people are working at? And so I stumbled on this article by Andrei Burkov, and I stumbled on it and I clicked on it, and it was very interesting. And by the way, guys, I'm going to leave a link to all the resources I'll be talking about here today for those of you who want to follow up and take a look at it. So it said the state of AI report, and it was very fascinating to me. So I clicked and I went a little bit deeper into it and explored to see what is it, what is the state of AI report, right? We all know, for those of you that are in the United States, we know the state of the union, right? Or some states, even if you're living within a particular state, the governor would give a state of the state report. And so somebody coming up with the state of AI report, it was very fascinating to me. And one of the reasons why I really recommend reading things like this is because it's really hard to know and to keep up to date with what is happening in the field, and having people that take the time to come up with the state of AI report, I think is, as professionals, is really incumbent upon us to dissect this, and so that we can know what's happening in the industry. So that was the report I came across, and I clicked on it, and it was very interesting. I moved that aside. And if you drill down into that report, what it would do is it would take you to the website. And this is the website that, like I said, Nathan Benesch and Ian Hoggart, I believe they both manage the website from East London, UK. It's very fascinating. This particular report is a second version that they're releasing. So it's available on SlideShare. If you click on it, I think we should be able to access that on SlideShare, and you can go through the report on SlideShare. And I'll be going through that a little bit more in closer detail. And I believe there's a 2018 version. I haven't looked at that yet, but it'll be fascinating to go back and look at this to see what was talked about and where there are similarities and some of the changes that has happened. All right, so this is the report. We're going to be breaking it down. And the reason why I like this report, and I'm really focusing on this report, is because I like the way they approach it, right? Breaking it down into research, talent, industry, China, politics. So these are your key themes that really affect AI. And so we can go into each and every one of this to really analyze it in more details. All right. So if I was to do all this in one video, this would be a very long video. And for the interest of time, what I'm going to do as I make this series of videos is I'll break it down into research and say what exactly is happening from the research perspective, and we're gonna dive in there. We're gonna explore all the research that's happening and explain them in a lot of details. We're gonna look at talent, we're gonna look at industry, we're gonna look at China and what's happening in China. We're also going to look at politics and how that plays from a geopolitical perspective with countries and continents and blocks like the EU, the African Union, and things like that. So that's really the framework of what we're going to be talking about in this in this report, and the context would be guided by this report. So if you've read this report, it's a very long report. It took me hours or if not days to just go through page by page, not just reading but also doing checking to say, okay, this was talked about in this report, let me go look a little bit about it, find videos or any supporting material to help my understanding of that concept. So that's really what I'll be presenting to you today. Now, for the interest of transparency, I like to, not just make my videos about one perspective, right? Because I'm sure some of you out there might say, but Fro, you're embarking on a series of videos and you're going to be taking one report about 136 pages and breaking it down, but aren't you biased? Or why just this report? There are many reports out there, right? Why don't you look at other reports and talk about them? And if that's your perspective, I totally agree, right? Because there are other reports out there in terms of state of AI. A quick search will probably give you dozens of those reports. I don't think there's anything particular about the Nathan and Ian's report that I'm gonna focus on. It just really caught my attention, and I dove a little bit deeper into that piece. But like I said, there are other reports out there that you can certainly read and follow. I'm sure some are free, some might be premium with paid versions. But if you really want to look at more reports, guys, there are dozens of reports out there that you can look at. Like this one, State of AI 2019, almost like a similar name. This particular one by MMC Venture is something that you can also look at if you really want to explore the field. I like this one when I came across it, how their website is very interactive. It looks very polished. I haven't read the content of it to be able to understand what exactly they're talking about. But again, you can see the major themes, right? The age of AI, the state of AI, right? The disruptors and Europe's AI startups, right? You can see the war for AI talent, right? Let's actually click on that. So I'm sure if you click on that, it will take you into a drill down where they can give you some summaries about what's going on, some recommendations. That's actually interesting, right? If you're looking for recommendations, then a report like this might be something that you want to consider. So this is very interactive, and they give you graphs, and it all looks very pretty, right? So that's one option. And the reason why I include this in this presentation, guys, is because I want to be clear and put it out there that there's information isn't the problem. There's a lot of information, and just because I'm going into this particular report, actually let's look at the 2019 version. It doesn't mean that this is the only source of information there is out there, but we do have options in the field, and definitely feel free to pick and choose as you fit to augment your AI knowledge and your knowledge of the industry. So that said, that giving us that primer, I'm going to move this aside for a second. We're going to now dive in and focus on this particular report. So this is really what our attention will be at: the state of AI in 2019. What is it? Right, guys? So what I'll do today, this particular session today, will just be a warm introduction. So today we're not really going to dive into all the nitty-gritties of this report. Like I said, I'll be breaking them into separate videos. So you might see a playlist coming attached with this that breaks out each of the pieces of that report. So just stay tuned to that. But in the spirit of giving an introduction into what we're going to be talking about, let's take a look at who wrote this report. Who are the people behind this report? So I shared the link of the website where you can find this two fine gentlemen, Nathan Benaich, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and Ian Hoggart. So now, before we go any further, I really want to call out something here, and this is something that I usually recommend for everybody. If I'm consuming any new piece of information, let's say something like this, which is an extensive report, and I'm trying to augment my understanding of the field, as professionals or as leaders in the industry, we have to be cognizant of just having an understanding of who is writing this, right? Are there any biases? Are there any inclinations? Are there any things that we should be aware of about the authors, right? Because authors tend to lean in one direction or another based on what they're talking about. So and I like how, you know, they have their bios here. You can kind of see what their background is, and that will give us a little bit of an understanding of what to kind of expect in the report that they present. So very, very, very great, and I recommend this for anybody. If I'm buying a report, if I'm just reading a report like this, if I'm reading a book, if I'm buying a book on AI, I've been buying a lot of books and reading. One of the things I usually like to do is, you know, first thing, read about the author, you know, read their motivation, go behind, read up on them, go on LinkedIn, like I showed on LinkedIn. I'm sure these guys are on LinkedIn. Connect with them. If they want to connect with you, have them in your network, follow them on social media, just so I have some idea of what's going on. So that said, let's dive into looking at these two authors of this report. So Nathan Benaich, again, I hope I pronounced that correctly. You know, he's the founder of some startup companies. I'm not going to read this verbatim. I think that you can definitely read for yourself. But one of the things that I want to call that is, you can see that Nathan has a PhD from Cambridge University in cancer research. So a PhD from Cambridge University in cancer research. So that tells me that Nathan has some academic background, which is very fascinating. And we really want to see that to understand that, sure, you're right, he's coming from an academic background, he has a PhD, somebody who knows what he's talking about, right? If we look at Ian too, Ian seems to also have an academic background. You can see he's a visiting scholar at UCL. And but more importantly, you can see that he's an angel investor in 50 plus startups. An angel investor in 50 plus startups. That's really interesting to see, because when I see that, it tells me that Ian is not just somebody from the academics, right? He's not just somebody from academia, that he also has some industry experience, right? And his interests is cancer and biopsy images and things like that. So he has both the academic background, some it seems like some industry experience, which is very relevant, right? As we're looking at AI, we want to, not just get something from academics, right? And we want to also back that up with industry, what's happening in the industry, and people who've actually been in the industry. I think that your perspective usually would help, right? I'm of the belief that, AI is amazing, and we're going to be talking about a lot of some amazing stuff within AI. I'll do an introduction of this paper very quickly, and I have a presentation I'll go through very quickly today as well. But at the same time, in as much as AI is amazing, we have to understand that it has to be backed up by value, and that value really comes from its application in industry. If we're just talking theory within academia and PhDs, and not necessarily seeing how it can help companies, individuals, and advance humanity, we can really miss a big picture. So having that balance between academia and industry, I think, is very great to see, and these two gentlemen seem to have that very solidly. So let's dive in next into the research. The structure of it, like I said, is introduction, the research, talent, industry, politics, and much more. Each and every one of this will be its own separate videos, guys. So check out for the playlist to see where each of this is covered. I'm actually gonna break it down and have some explanations around those. So that said, the research focuses around these key topics here, right? Research, talent, industry, and China. And so that's really what we're gonna be going over. Again, if you want to connect with them, check out, I think these are their LinkedIn, or these are their profiles. I'm not sure which one it is. This might be Twitter profile. So check out and connect with them. I'm sure they will definitely want to connect with their readers. All right, there's a bunch of thank yous. Great, I think, people they collaborated with. So a few definitions. Now there are, I believe 3 slides in this that goes through the definition of AI. I'm gonna go through this really fast, and then I'm gonna dive into my own presentation, which takes us very high level and gives us a high level soft welcome into the field of AI. So we can understand why is this AI even relevant, and some of the things that we're seeing in the industry at a very high level. So what is AI, machine learning, reinforcement learning, deep learning? We're gonna talk about all of this. And then some key definitions that are a little bit more technical: and algorithm, and model, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, transfer learning, natural language processing, and computer vision. So these are some of the key definitions that I talked about, and it's very important that we have some understanding of these definitions in order to really grasp the concepts that are going to be talked about within the report. Now that said, the next slide here starts by reviewing the predictions from 2018, which is great. I would recommend you take a look at that, and then they dive straight into the research and the technical breakthroughs. So from here, this will be a separate video. Guys, before we go into the separate video, we're going to be looking at a presentation that I mentioned that I have for us to go through, and the whole goal is I want to supplement what they talked about here, the introduction piece, with just a quick warm introduction into AI and why this is transformational in the field that we see, right? So AI is really very powerful. But before I dive into that, again, a little bit about myself. I am Fru Lewis, a coach in terms of coaching folks into getting into IT and data and AI, machine learning, and the more emerging technologies. So I'm here. I love to educate, and that's why I'm doing it. You can find me on social media, Twitter at Fru Lewis, or my personal blog, or one of the productivity tools that I have out there. And we're going to be using this tool quite a bit. Now, before we dive into talking about AI, which we're going to be looking at, I want to step back and give us a quote, which I really love. And this quote is by Wayne Gretzky. So Wayne Gretzky was he was a hockey player, and arguably one of the best hockey players. I think he has the most goals. I'm not sure the amount of goals he has, and no one has come even close to beating the record. And in an interview, or in one of his famous quotes, he's at least attributed to him, that he's known for, he says, his success comes from what we see on the screen, right? I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been, right? So this is very powerful, and the reason why I'm including this as part of this discussion is because we're going to be talking about a lot of things in this presentation that might seem a little bit futuristic. They might seem like, but Fru, why do you care about something that doesn't exist yet, right? That seems so far-fetched. That seems so far away, right? And as IT professionals, as leaders in the industry, I'm of the school of thought that we cannot afford to just continue with the status quo, because that's not what reality shows us. There's a lot of advances that are happening in the industry, in academia, and all around us, right? And as leaders, as managers, as people in the industry, it's really on us to skate to where the puck is going to be and make sure that we can catch the puck when it's there, rather than trying to follow up where it has been and catch up with old technologies that might be outdated, right? A lot of folks are talking about AI today. A lot of business leaders are talking about AI today. Yet there are organizations that might not be paying attention to, right? And so they're still chasing old technology and not seeing how AI or big data or things like that can really come in and change their business processes and offer value. So just something that we definitely should think about. And that really comes with another quote, and I would have this, I will show this on the screen. This is from the great Steve Jobs. When we talk about technology, Steve Jobs is definitely one of the greats that is out there. So this is on YouTube. It's available on YouTube. I'm gonna play this, by the way, so let's just go ahead, play that.
There's an old Wayne Gretzky quote that I love. I skate to where the puck is going to be.
All right, so you have it again. I just thought it'd be very interesting if somebody like Steve Jobs says it, and not just me saying it. By the way, guys, you'll notice that in these presentations, I'll be leveraging this extension. It's a Chrome browser extension that I have installed on YouTube. It's called Thrilly AI. And just for full transparency, I am the builder of that extension. So a lot of the videos that I'll be referencing, I've either bookmarked or sliced or indexed those videos using the Chrome extension. So you can go on 3ly.com and get the extension on your Chrome browser. It works on Chrome, and that way you can follow along with the conversations or some of the videos that have been included here. Once you have the extension installed, it's just like any other extension. Then you can see the bookmarks that I've added to this video or any video that I'm referencing, because I don't think it's fair for me to give you a 1 minute or 30 minutes long video if just a piece of that video is relevant. So this bookmark should really help you with that, and you can even take it further to analyze videos using artificial intelligence, but that's for a whole separate video. So make sure you get the 3ly extension, that way you can follow along as the presentation continues. Now that said, we have had just a warm introduction into AI, so let's dive a little bit deeper into having an overview of artificial intelligence. Why AI? Why is this relevant in the first place? Right? And this is a question that someone coming into the industry or into the field should be asking. Why AI? Why should I care? What is it about? Right? Can you give me some warm introduction? So with that, I have this video here. We're gonna start by playing that video to have an idea. Guys, like I mentioned, there will be a lot of videos as we're going through this, so we're really getting a full picture of what's going on. So now in this video, it's a video that's on YouTube. Just to be transparent, this video is really it's a comedy video, right? It might seem like it's real. Just from what I understand, this is just pure comedy. It's not actually anything real. So would play 3 parts of these videos. Again, I've all bookmarked them and indexed them with 3ly AI, which you can get the extension to see my bookmarks there. So the reason why I love this particular video is because it gives us a full picture of the perception of AI as of today, right? Where people, when they think of AI, they think of something humanoid, right? They think of a robot, and then once we start thinking of robots, we start thinking of the rights of the machine, and then we all get scared, right? And then the robot will attack, and then humanity is gonna be in trouble. That's really the perception surrounding AI. It's a little bit, in my own opinion, it's a little bit misplaced. I don't think it's necessarily true, but that's what it is out there. So let's look at some of the 3 points that I've highlighted in this video today. So the very first one we're gonna look at is the test begins. Wait on it. All right, so nothing out of the ordinary happening there. We can see the robot coming in and doing some dexterity kind of moves. Pretty impressive, I would say, right? This gentleman here throwing over a box, and the robot can catch that and send it back. Very, very impressive. And somebody here looking like they are doing some research and recording some data about what's going on. Very fascinating. But I just want to call out again, like I said, I'm of the belief that this is just all comedy. You can see Boston Dynamics. I think it's meant to be Boston Dynamics, and they are just maybe parodying Boston Dynamics, which again is another research company that comes up with a lot of videos like this in terms of the research that they do from an AI perspective. All right, so now the video has played. We can see this happening. So what's interesting, they continue doing things like this, but the piece that I want to jump onto is to all right, so there you have it. I can't get enough of this. All right, so the attack is over, and now we're going to be playing the next index that I have here, which is a reveal. Again, just revealing that this is not actually real. It seems to be just comedy of people acting this with a suit. Yep. So you can go ahead and watch this video for yourself. I'm gonna leave a link below, but very fascinating, right? It starts off, we're all fooled, we think it's a real robot, which seems to be just a comedy, they mess around with the robot, and the robot gets pissed off and attacks, right? But then I'm happy that it's all revealed to be comedy. But this is videos like this, with millions of views on YouTube. This is what people tend to see, right? This is what people are seeing, and it's no surprise that with things like this being available in the public, our perception or the public's perception of AI could be really geared towards a direction of robots and robots attacking humans and things like that, right? All jokes aside, we're going to continue with the presentation of really diving through into what is artificial intelligence and why is it bear with me, why is it important. So before we get too deep into talking about some of the concepts, again, like I said, this particular presentation here will be a primer, so that in the follow-up videos we're going to be looking at the state of AI report. So this is a thought exercise, guys, and I really want you to follow along with me. Feel free to pause this video at any time so you can follow along with the exercise. On the screen I have a picture, and this picture is the link of this picture is below. So this is a picture of a Dreamliner factory, an airplane, of course, being made. But the question that I have for this thought exercise is, what do you see in this picture? What do you see in this picture? What I would encourage you to do is maybe take a piece of paper and pause this video for maybe 3 or 5 minutes and write down everything you see in this picture, right? I've done this in previous presentation, and some of the things that people have listed was, well, they see an airplane, they see a flag, they see some guardrails, they see some monitors, they see some people, they see some, they see many things. They see forklift, they see different things that are available within the industry. They see steps, they see, a building, glasses, ceiling, and many things that people see within this video. And this is not meant to be a trick video to test your eyesight or anything like that, right? It's just really a thought exercise to see, gauge what people see when we look at videos. Now I can say, I'm assuming that you've paused this video, you've written down your 5 things that you see, right? Feel free to go into the comment section below and leave the things that you see, just so we can really get some idea of what people saw. But I've done this several times, and the thing that I've never gotten from people saying that they see was they did not see electricity, right? When people look at this video, no one says, oh, I see electricity flowing in cables and coming here, right? I don't mean light, right? You might point out light here, that's a different thing, but I mean the electricity, right? The power itself. No one looks at this picture and automatically see electricity. Of course, we cannot see electricity in the first place, right? But we know that this factory would not be possible without electricity. Jeff Bezos of Amazon has spoken a lot about that, right? In terms of talking about, I think when he spoke about it in about, a couple of years, in the 1998 or so, some video I saw way back in 1996, something. One of the videos I saw, he talks about electricity being, he talked about the internet being the electricity of the future, right? I think that's really one analogy to look at. But in this case, what we're really saying is that AI is really becoming the electricity of the future, because we cannot see electricity here, but we know that this factory will not exist without electricity. And what we're saying is that AI is becoming the electricity of the future, right? Where organizations and business processes will not exist without electricity, right? You look at your business processes and you can list everything around that process except the electricity, which is AI, because it's just there, right? And that's really the power. That's really the mindset that leaders and IT professionals and practitioners really have to have at the back of their mind, because electricity is something that you don't see, but we cannot live without it. And AI is really poised to become that electricity that we don't see, but we cannot live without it. We cannot run our businesses without it. We cannot live our personal lives without it. It's always going to be there. It's always going to help us. Now, with that said, giving us this primer, let's look at the news. Let's look at some headlines, and there is no shortage of it, right? Everywhere you look, it seems to be that AI is transforming the world, right? Some advancement is happening. AI plays games, and we're going to be looking at this as we break down the state of AI report, right? You can see AI in the stock market, right? Even in the movies, right? AI changing computers. So everywhere you look, AI seems to be abundant, right? So it's really, 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 really powerful and everywhere around us. And if something is this abundant, it's very important that we pay attention to it. And something that people might even miss is this piece of article down on the screen here, where Trump signs an executive order. Let's see if we can move this. Where Trump signs an Trump, the president of the United States, signs an executive order, about AI research. I think this was back in about February or March of this year. So very, very powerful. The countries are making investments. Individuals are making investments, and AI is really becoming very, 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 very powerful. And we cannot miss this with all the attention that AI is getting. But what exactly is it? So when people talk about AI, there's really three things that you might hear, and we're gonna go through the definition of those terms, just so we have a little bit of a background. So you have AI, you have machine learning, you have deep learning, you have reinforcement learning, and there's just so many things, right? Generative adversarial networks, and the list continues. So, but the main three things that people usually talk about within the context of AI, they're either talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, or deep learning at a very high level. So what is artificial intelligence? So artificial intelligence is really that idea, that mindset that that we humans can build systems that are smart enough to mimic human behavior, right? And if they sufficiently mimic human behavior, then they're exhibiting some form of intelligence. And so starting back in the 1950s, research and some thoughts were going around this and really stirring a lot of excitement into the field. So that's really the big concept behind artificial intelligence, that we can build machines that will mimic human intelligence. Whatever human intelligence means, we can build machines that can mimic that. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the next coming slides. Right now, once we talk about artificial intelligence, then we also have machine learning. Machine learning, and these are color coded, so these are subsets. So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence that just focuses on machines, right? This is the idea that we can train machines with statistical methods to mimic, with statistical methods and maybe a lot of data to mimic some form of intelligence, right? And that intelligence, of course, will be artificial. So now looking at machine learning as a subset, machine learning has been out there for many years, right? If you've used Google and their Gmail and their spam filtering, you will know you've seen machine learning in action. Basically, they can train their mail systems to look at an email and say, is this spam or not, right? And the machine is deciding that. That's all machine learning is. It's been trained over many emails to figure out if any new email being presented is spam or not. So that's something that has been in the industry for a while. Now, what we're seeing, and this is what has really gotten into the news and caused a lot of attention of recent, which is deep learning. And there are a lot of breakthroughs are happening here with AlphaGo and DeepMind, Watson, and all of those are really coming up because of deep learning. So, and what is deep learning? Deep learning is a subset again of machine learning that really focuses on, again, is using neural networks that kind of mimics the brain, or artificial neural networks, I should say. That kind of mimics the brain in terms of how the brain works with neurons and axons and such, to be able to analyze images, videos, or text for specific patterns. And so the whole idea behind the deep learning is an architecture called the deep neural network, or the artificial neural network that mimics the brain to be able to do a very complex task. Like, given a picture, can you tell if that picture is a cat or a dog, right? It's not a trivial thing to do, right? And the previous machine learning methods really struggled at that, but deep learning has come up with some new approaches that are really doing a lot of breakthroughs and advances in the field of deep learning, right? So this gives us a good overview of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. Just understanding that it's all a subset, right? So the whole idea behind deep learning is to build things that can mimic some form of some form of intelligence, which is artificial, of course. So artificial intelligence, and the timeline here is not necessarily correlative into what has happened, but again, just to give you some ideas that around 2010 or 2006 to 10 or so, we had the emergence of big data, and with a lot of data being collected, I feel that really fuels some of the advances that we're seeing here in deep learning and such. Now, the next thing that we're going to look at is what exactly is intelligence. We're talking about artificial intelligence, so we're talking about AI, and it's also very important to step back and ask that question. But what do we mean by intelligence? Do we even know what intelligence means, right? And I don't want to go into the philosophical debate here in terms of what is intelligence and consciousness and being a sentient being. I think that could really take us, from the neuroscience perspective into a different direction. But just at the fundamental level, this quote by Max Tegmark is something that's very interesting, and I thought I'll include that as part of this presentation, where it talks about everything that we love about civilization is a product of intelligence, right? So amplifying our human intelligence with artificial intelligence has the potential of helping civilization flourish like never before, as long as we can manage to keep the technology beneficial, right? And so this quote really stands out. It not only talks about why we should care about artificial intelligence, but it also kind of starts giving us those guardrails, right? And the framework in which we should really be operating with artificial intelligence. And this is something that you would see. I believe the State of AI report, I might have to cover that once we go in. So check out the next coming videos, where I'm going to talk a little bit about ethics and privacy, and and control over data, as that really becomes, and safety, as that really becomes an important topic when we talk about artificial intelligence. But going back to this quote that we have on the screen, we're really seeing that intelligence is not the idea of superseding human intelligence, but a way of augmenting, the way of amplifying, the way of complementing, right, with synergy, the intelligence that humans have by machines, right? Machines are good at just doing manual work, right? Think about the email that we talked about, right? The spam filter. So imagine that you had human beings sitting there in rooms on Google's campus and checking every email to say, okay, this email spam, that email not spam, right? That's not scalable. It's not going to happen, right? So humans are not good at that kind of a task, and if we can automate that, right? So machines are good at it. They can sit all day and check emails to say spam or not spam, while humans are using their own intelligence for higher level higher level thinking, or higher level very cognitive kind of task. I was literally watching a podcast that talked about this lady. I can't really recall the name to give some attribution to her, but she was mentioning that when we talk about intelligence, it's really hard to talk about intelligence without evolution, right? And that was an interesting perspective, that the machines that we've built so far can never be intelligent because they haven't gone through that process of evolution to build their consciousness. And evolution happens because of goals. And if machines which we're creating don't have intrinsic goals of themselves, they have no reason to evolve, right? Because if you look at Darwin talks about evolution really happening because of survival of the fittest. So the systems that have evolved want to survive. They want to procreate and pass on their genes, and so they have a built-in motivation to evolve. And because of that evolution, because they're evolving and bettering themselves, they somehow develop intelligence to keep them towards achieving that goal. And that argument was that machines don't have that implicit need for for evolution because they don't have that goal to self-procreate. Now, that's one way that somebody can look at it. But who knows if that's the only school of thought, right? Who knows that, what if the machines are built with those intrinsic goals that can allow them to want to procreate, or want to keep themselves alive, right? And in that sense would have to evolve, right? Would have to use strategies to keep them alive. Would that necessarily lead to evolution, artificial evolution? So those are certain school of thoughts, and this whole idea of intelligence is really robust, and you can take it in different directions. But at the end of the day, whatever we learn us as that definition of intelligence is really going to be up to, I believe, up to us, the humans, setting the boundaries and really doing and coming up with a definition of what we want. I don't think that the dust are settled yet on that, not just from the technological perspective, but also from the philosophical perspective, because it can't just be technology, it can't just be bytes, ones and zeros, right? There's a lot of philosophy that goes into this when we talk about creating things that can potentially be smarter than us. All right. So talking again about what is intelligent, one way to look at it, some might say this is a naive way to look at it, right? If it looks intelligent and it acts like an intelligent and it acts intelligent, even if it does so in ways different from humans, it could be considered intelligence. So this is one school of thought, right, in terms of going into that definition of what is intelligence, right? So again, somebody might say this is a naive way of it, that we need to be concrete about what we mean by it looks intelligent, right? What does that mean? But again, this could be another approach where just because we don't even know this territory, right, we're still trying to, or researchers, or the smart people in the field are still trying to figure it all out. It might be worth letting the definition a little bit loose as things get figured out, right? Now that we've done a quick overview of artificial intelligence, I hope we have a warm background in terms of what artificial intelligence is. And I took pains to talk about intelligence a little bit, just because this is a field that, without understanding what we're dealing with, people can really come up with different opinions, and those opinions could be helpful or not helpful. If people don't even think that we should be building intelligent things, then it could really set us back. But now that we've had that warm introduction into artificial intelligence and overview, why now? Why is this the time in humanity that, or in businesses, or in organizations, or in teams, that we should be thinking about building intelligence systems or leveraging artificial intelligence for whatever goal it is we want to achieve? Like I said a little bit earlier, when we think of, and the videos that I played at the beginning of this, right? Unfortunately, when we think about intelligence, this is what we think about because of media. The media portrays, the rise of the machines and robots that are going to wake up and gain some consciousness and decide that they want to self-preserve themselves, and as such, they'll kill human beings, right? Talking about singularity, when the machines would surpass humans in intelligence, right? And being able to go past the Turing test, right? The Turing test, which is a test by Alan Turing back in, I believe, it might be the 50s or the 60s or so, that talked about, or even, maybe the 50s or so, that talks about, humans interacting with machines, and the test is passed if you can interact with machines in a sufficient way to not know if it's a machine. So that's a very high level description of that test. But this is what we see. This is what pop culture presents to us as artificial intelligence, and that's why people are legitimately scared when they think about it, right? If you mention artificial intelligence, people are like, does that mean a robot is gonna come take our jobs and kill us, and humanity will be all doomed? And it could be very scary. And it's not just me talking about this, right? You got people that are way smarter than myself would ever come any close, right? Have way more money than I could ever even imagine in a million lifetimes, right? And they're talking about it. They have opinions about it. And the reason why we gotta pay attention to this is because, guys, we're getting to the point where opinions do matter, right? Some people might say, well, let Elon and Facebook or Mark Zuckerberg, think about and argue all they want. That doesn't really concern me at all, right? Well, if that's your perspective, guys, I feel like that could really be it could be very misleading, because the things that Mark Zuckerberg, especially, and even Elon Musk, the things that they think about and the things that they decide to do and put the attention towards has direct impact on you. You cannot even argue that, right? There are, I know a lot of you that are watching or listening to this have Facebook accounts, right? You're using Facebook, you're using social media, right? Those systems are being built. AI is being built into those systems, right? What if Mark Zuckerberg has a certain opinion about AI and decides that he's gonna make Facebook, build some AI things into Facebook that you don't necessarily agree with, you're gonna be impacted by that, right? And that's why I feel that as citizens, we're getting to the point where we cannot just afford to be on the sidelines, right, and just watch what's happening. Those things are going to impact all of us, and the way we make the right decisions in terms of steering these folks, whether it's Elon Musk or it's Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos or Microsoft or Google, all those folks, in terms of or the politicians and who we vote for. It's gonna come down to us understanding what this tool is doing in the first place, in order for us to make those informed decisions that needs to be made. Right, like Elon Musk, is of the belief that AI could be very destructive, right? Elon has some would say it's a pessimistic view or a nihilistic outcome of what AI could present once we cross that threshold of singularity. Again, singularity meaning, the point where machines become sufficiently smart as humans and surpass us at exponential rates, right? Because the growth of intelligence will not be linear, right? It's going to be exponential, and once that happens, there's no saying that the machines will not decide to kill or attack or defend their own interests, and right, and if they defend their interests and their interests don't align with that of human beings, right, and they're more intelligent than us, right, you can bet who's gonna win that war that's gonna ensue, right? And so Elon is of that belief that we should not just race into AI without necessary constraint and such. But whereas Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, on the other hand, takes a more jovial, I would say, approach, or a more a more optimistic approach. And his belief is that AI can be used for good and would be used for good, and we have nothing to worry about. That humanity would only use AI for good, and there's nothing to be worried about whether or not singularity happens and such. Now, some might say, well, Mark Zuckerberg has all the incentives to have that opinion, because of course he's going to be building AI into his Facebook platform and using it to make more money, and so why would he not want more AI as such? So it's really up to these are the opinions that we have on the table now. Whichever person you lean on could be, that could influence your own opinion, right? Some would lean more towards Elon. Some would see Mark Zuckerberg as, all things will be good and everybody is gonna be conscientious, But again, I don't mean to get into the politics here, right? Some might argue that Mark Zuckerberg, if you're looking at the news, that his track record in terms of Cambridge Analytica and some of the things that happened there, where AI was used, or data from his platform was used to in ways that people don't necessarily approve of. You can argue that why should we then trust that things will be any different in that perspective. So these are the perspectives that are out there, and I really encourage you guys to, as you're following this, to really dive into some of these presentations and articles. I have the link of the article here as well, to read them and to get the opinions of these folks, right? To politicians, right? You can talk to your politicians, for those of you that are in the United States, or in if you're watching this from around the world. What do your politicians, what do your leaders think about AI, right? What are their opinions about it? Is there a plan for AI? right? What are the safeguards? These are things that, you know, are becoming very important, and everybody should be paying attention to it. And you cannot pay attention to it if we have no understanding of what AI is about in the first place. So really having that robust understanding of what AI is in the first place, I think that is a good step, you know, for us to then start making informed decisions as citizens or as users of products that are built with some intelligence in them, whether we're driving Tesla cars, self-driving cars, or we're using Facebook that can, you know, use AI to give us product recommendations or show our friends list, and or the kind of music we're gonna listen to with Spotify and things like that, right? So there are different opinions about this, and you know, it's very important that we educate ourselves about the opinions that are out there. Now, one of the things I also want to call about, because this was in the news a little bit, where, you know, Sophia, I think they call this lady Sophia. She was granted a Saudi Arabian citizenship. Is supposed to be a humanoid robot that can talk. I'm not really a fan of you know, of this, in terms of I don't think AI it just has to be humanoid, but unfortunately the media just seems to only portray AI in the humanoid form, which I believe skews. I'm gonna pause this for a second here, which I believe contributes a long way into skewing the perception that people have, because when they say AI, they always think about robots, and humanoid robots for that matter, right? You can have robots that are not in the humanoid form, but those are still AI, right? You can have not even robots at all. You can just have computer systems that are all AI driven, like your flight, right? Booking your flight, and, you know, cancellation, and figuring out if, you know, usage of that flight. There are things like that that can all be AI driven, discovering new drugs and things like that that are not necessarily humanoids, but they're all AIs. And, you know, I feel that with the media just portraying humanoids could really, you know, it's interesting. I know people want to watch and talk about this, but that's just a tiny bit of it, right? And it's very important that we stay aware of that. I'm gonna play this video really quick. I wouldn't do too much of it, just from a copyright perspective, but just listen, and so we can get some ideas about what's going on.
Okay, Sophia, I think you're ready.
Hello.
Hi, Sophia.
I believe I am Sophia. I feel as if I know you.
I'm one of your creators.
You created me.
Well, many of us work together to create you. And yes, you do kind of know me.
I can't
All right,
clearly
guys.
remember.
I'll let you watch the entire video,
Because the last time we met-
which is available again on YouTube. I'm gonna leave the link included as part of this presentation. But again, like I mentioned, those are some of the perceptions. Those are some of the way artificial intelligence is now portrayed in the media. And it's no surprise that when people think of AI, we immediately think about robots. And I think Sophia is taking center stage in growing her person. I'm pretty sure she has not a Facebook, an Instagram account, and probably sharing her daily activities of waking up and drinking coffee or sitting by the beach, you know, and things like that. But all jokes aside, these are great advances that are happening in the field of AI, and that's even more reason why we need to pay attention to this field and to educate ourselves. Now, the field of AI hasn't just experienced linear growth. Like in any other field that exists out there, AI has gone through its booms and its bust. And this slide is really to just give us an idea of where we've been and where we're going. And I think that's usually very important to have a context of it, right? Because we seem to be in one of those summers, right, where we have a boom and a big bust. But we have to understand that there have been winters as well. And I hope that when the summer, and the summer is going to last long, that we're not going to experience the summer for a short time and then maybe go back into a winter that could be very frustrating for organizations or individuals that want to take advantage of this tool for their businesses or for their life. Now, so the first boom that really happened was around the 1960s, right? And then we had something around the 1980s, and then now we're really experiencing some things in the late, 2010s or going to 2020 and such, right? So it seems to happen every 20 or 30 years or so. But that said, that first boom really came out where, computer systems were looking more around heuristics, right? Following set rules in order to solve problems. So these were not intelligent at all, right? These were not intelligent at all. This is just, right, almost using algorithms to just solve problems and some statistical methods, right? So there's some advances that happened there in the 1960s, and then we switched over to more knowledge type of systems, which really came up in the 1980s, from just solving problems mechanically to doing more knowledge types of solving. And if you see that around 1994 or so, that's when chess was a computer system beat chess, I believe, right? I believe checkers happened a little bit before that, which was around the 1960s, from computer systems defeating checkers, because those systems, they have a finite, it's a finite problem, right? With something like checkers, it's a finite problem, it's a finite amount of moves. A computer can easily manipulate that and crunch over the numbers, hundreds or millions or trillions of times, right? But now, where we are with machine learning is really around going beyond just those very statistical kinds of methods to using machine learning with deep learning and almost mimicking the brain and getting close to what we envision as human intelligence, right? Where cars can drive themselves, right? For a car to drive itself, it sounds like it's a trivial problem, but it's not, right? Defeating Go, which is an old Chinese game, board game, which people thought could never be defeated, or machines would never be able to play the game, and machines being able to do that. Those are advances that are exponential. These are, like, we're talking about quantum leaps in the field of machine learning and AI, right? And so it's no surprise that seeing all these advances in our current society today, a lot of excitement has really been spurred back into the field of AI. And we're experiencing a summer, I would say, right? This is a summer. It seems like every day I wake up and I read an article or the news, or I go to a conference, some record has been broken, some new game has been defeated, right? Whether it's AlphaGo or StarCraft or something, those advances don't seem to slow down, right? Self-driving cars are becoming ubiquitous. Almost every company, with Tesla and BMW, everybody is getting into that frenzy of embedding intelligence into their systems, or they're gonna left behind, right? Organizations, healthcare companies, research companies, IBM, all of them are really getting onto board with AI. So we are in great times, and as professionals or as leaders in the industry, it's very fascinating to see the current time in which we're experiencing. And I hope personally that this lasts for long, right? This is a summer. We definitely want this to ride this wave as long as possible, right? Not to go down into a winter where research slows down and discoveries are not happening, or we reach a plateau and we cannot make the exponential leaps that we're seeing here forward into the field. Now that we've talked about AI, I feel it would be a little bit I would do it injustice if I can talk about AI without necessarily exploring the technology landscape and talking about some of the value that AI brings, or that AI provides to organizations, to individuals, and why we should care, right? So some of the things that we see, of course, and I mentioned it in the previous slide there, with seeing autonomous systems, machine learning and deep learning, right? So on the right side here, depending on how you're watching this, is some of the systems and the frameworks that are in existence, and then on the left side of the screen, again, depending on how you're watching this, are more of the applications, right? So here we're seeing neural networks, deep learning, pattern recognitions, natural language, chatbots, and such, right? And then applications, these are giving us real-time types of analytics, robotics, personal assistant, neuromorphic computing, and things like that. So there is a lot of applications. So AI is not just about academia and talking about statistics and ones and zeros and trying to be like human beings. No, these are things that can really, really be applied to businesses. And as we go through the in my next videos where we'll be going through the state of AI, one of the slides that Ian and team provided goes through a lot of startups that are taking advantage of AI. And if you look at the patents that are being filed, you look at the companies that are being formed, right? That are being incorporated. AI is really, really, really taking a big chunk of that. And so that really means that this is not just theory. A lot of this is being applied, right? And it's going to be affecting our lives in one way or another. Let's look at, again, some businesses, or what the impacts are for businesses. So this is from the link available here with these numbers, right? We can see that businesses are investing a lot, right? Looking at machine learning, 62%, right? Computer vision, investing in computer vision, automation, autonomous vehicles. So there's a lot of investment that is happening. From an industry perspective, we're also going to look at this more. You can see technology and communication, telco, right? Again, automotive, right? A lot of car companies are really getting in on this, using computer vision and sensors to be able to self-drive cars. So there's a lot of investment. Education seems to be down there. I would like to see that up a little bit, where we can use AI to gauge students, what they learn, what they understand, and tailor education to very specific individuals, to an individual student, rather than just the current model of sit there and we'll just bombard you with knowledge and hope that you understand. Anyways, that's gonna be a topic for a different presentation. We can also again see here in the investment in AI, the way it's projected, it's going up and up and up and up and up. So these numbers should really get anybody excited in the field, right? These are numbers that you look at and you say, hey, what is my company doing? What is my team doing? What am I doing in my career to really position myself for success as this is coming, right? I'm of the believer that a wave can do two things. You can either ride the waves or you can let the wave barrage you, right? When you ride a wave, it's amazing. It's surfing. That's what surfers do. They ride the wave and it moves them from point A to point B, and it's really, really amazing. But if you're not surfing that wave, right, and you're standing by the side of the beach and you're not paying attention, that wave is gonna hit you like you've never seen before, right? And I would rather get a lot of people that are looking at these numbers to surf the wave, to ride that wave, to move their organization forwards, to move their career forward, than be hit by a wave where the results are not necessarily appealing. Now, this is a quote by Gartner on the far bottom here. By 2019, deep learning will provide best-in-class performance for demand, fraud, failure prediction. So the list can go on and on, and I'm going to be talking about this in more details as we proceed during this presentation. Again, some of the use cases, just to look at it, and the reason why I emphasize use cases is because AI in a vacuum is not very useful. I would dare say it's useless. It's just an academic exercise that no one cares about, and most academic exercises ultimately provide some real world benefit, right? So when we talk about AI, it's very important that we look at the use cases and where this is being applied, so that we can see how it's going to affect us, how it's going to affect our companies, our businesses, our nations, or whatever organization we affiliate with, right? So we're seeing things used for prediction, predicting the weather, predicting traffic, predicting smog, predicting fish in the sea, where fish will come. Companies are using trackers to find fish and be able to predict their movement and things like that. So AI can really be applied in a vast use cases, right? Customer service, getting customer insight, pricing. We're seeing this has been done many for decades now, I would even say, with Amazon dynamically changing prices, dynamic pricing based on understanding human behavior and what will motivate you to buy. They can change price on the fly, right? Supply chain as well. This is a big area with airplanes and cargos and ships, leveraging AI to stay on time, deliver products on time, avoid congestion and such. Human resources are leveraging AI for hiring, right? By the time you submit your resume, before somebody even looks at it, right, some AI application has scanned your resume to say, are you even going to be a good fit for that organization? Now, again, we're not going to go into the ethics of that or the efficacy or how efficient that is. That we're going to dive again into all of this more detail as we go through that State of AI report. But just to give you an idea, right, these are things that are being applied. We're not talking about theory here. We're talking about real world stuff that has direct or indirect impact on you. And that's why it's very important to pay attention to. Fraud detection is another thing that we can look at. Knowledge creation, right? Knowledge creation, we have, and I'm going to be showing some videos on this where robots or AI systems now can write articles that are even, you can pass them for human, for articles written by humans, right? That's just mind-blowing. So imagine reading an article and you don't know if a machine wrote that or if a human being wrote it, right? That could be scary. And we saw with fraud in terms of the elections and things like fake news. Or what if people weaponize and deploy that at scale to influence a country or to influence, customers? What impact does that mean for society? So these are really very fascinating things that we all should really pay attention to as professionals or as leaders or as practitioners in the field of AI to really pay attention to as well. Now, artificial intelligence. We've talked about what is it, why now, what are some of those use cases, and in the next couple of slides here, I really want to just dive in, stretch out a little bit and talk about what's next, what is coming, right? What is it that is coming into the field, and why should we care? In order to talk about what is coming, I think that it's important to step back a little bit and talk about, what has led us here and get a little bit technical. So just bear with me for those of you that are watching this video and are not necessarily technical. You might be executives or just leaders or just, business users. But this slide, talks a little bit about where and why we're seeing what we're seeing today. In the past, data was very scarce, right? If you wanted to get data, you just told stories, right? People sat by the fireside and they told stories all day long, right? Cave people, that's all they did, right? And then they kind of evolved that a little bit from just telling stories and keeping up everything in their brain to taking that information into their physical world. And the way they did that was by drawing on caves, right? And doing and cave paintings and things like that. So that was great. So that brought more information into the world and it passed more information down. And then things kind of went along. And then eventually we hit the point of the Gutenberg press, right? Sometime in Europe, that spurred the Renaissance, right? Where instead of just, drawing things on walls of caves or scribes in the medieval period sitting for years to just write one book and pass information along, right? The printing press could spit out, thousands of books. That made everybody literate, and people were publishing books as fast as they could think about writing them, right? And that really helped humanity. And then we progressed a little bit further. Then eventually we had, of course, the electricity that brought us the telegraph. It brought us the radio, and then it brought us storage devices, right? And that really brought us into the digital age. With the digital age, we had, we can take a picture, and instead of just drawing on caves, we can actually take a picture and save that on the device. And now we had that data, right? But data still was very limited. It was very limited, right? So you can only store so much on pictures on the device, right? And very few people had cameras, so we didn't have a lot of data. Now, fast forward to the early 90s with the phone coming out. So we had the phone come out, and this goes into 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and I'm gonna talk about that. And I've made some videos about that. Where with the early 90s, we had the 1G, and your phone could just take a picture. Phone could not take a picture. Let me take that back. A phone could just make a call. Basically, these were big bulky phones that you use to make a call. You can take a phone and you can make a call with it. That's your 1G types of phone. And then we evolved into the 2G phones into the late 90s. So we're talking about 96, 97, and around that kind of period, where in addition to just taking calls, phones now could send text messages, and you can play games, also simple games on your phones, right? The snake game that you can play on your phone as such. Now, those were 2G phones, and then we evolved into the 3G phones in the early to late 2000s, right? These are your phones that could take a few pictures. Instead of just sending text messages, they could send pictures, and maybe you can watch some mobile videos on your phone, right? This is when the iPhone came out, and the Android and all of this were making a lot of advances in terms of empowering users to capture, store, and transmit data and information. And then we switch over to the 4G, which is where we're currently at for the most part, right? And with the 4G is we instead of just being able to take pictures with phone and share that, we could do way much more, right? We can share pictures that were faster, right? The pictures will go faster. We can take pictures that are more clear. They weren't very grainy, and almost everybody, right, from the little kid that is, you see kids that are 2 or 3 years old, they have cell phones, right, all the way to grandparents in the 90s or 100s, right? Everybody has cell phones, right? And now every citizen has been empowered to collect data, right? And that's where we are right now, 4G, and now we're hearing about 5G coming up, even in the news, and a lot of people are wondering what it is. And I've made some videos about this with around 5G, and that's really promising to change the way we communicate and empower us even more to collect more data and to share more data about our personal lives, where we're traveling to, what we're eating, what we're listening to, what we're doing day to day, minute by minute, right? And so we have all these devices in our hands and the power to collect data. So the reason why I go through and narrate that all the way from the beginning of time of cave people and talking about, right, just imagine from the cave person to the printing press, we're talking about thousands of years, right? Thousands, or even that's a very long time. And then from when the printing press came to electricity and primitive types of telecommunication, that we're just talking about a couple of 100 years, right? That's not a very long time. Now from electricity coming in, and we have the first computers to now, it's just a couple of decades. Honestly, it hasn't even been up to 100 years, right? From 1960 to about now, it's just a couple of decades, right? And just within that time, and the empowerment that we've had in our ability to collect and store data has grown exponentially. So from the beginning of time to about the printing press, it took humans, and I don't have a diagram for this. I usually have that in one of my other presentations. It took the humanity had just less than 1 gigabyte of data actually stored somewhere, right? But from then to now, we're creating that in seconds, right? We're creating hundreds of gigabytes in seconds, right? There's statistics that on YouTube, you might be watching this video on YouTube, that every single minute, almost 400 hours worth of videos is uploaded to YouTube. That's just YouTube alone. 400 hours worth of content uploaded to YouTube alone, right? Now you have Facebook, you have Instagram, WhatsApp, Snapchat, LinkedIn, you name it. Everybody's in on the data race. So, and with 5G coming up, it's even gonna, take things to a whole different proportion in terms of the amount of data we can collect, right, and how we can transmit that data, right? 5G, we're talking about small cell networks, millimeter waves, MIMOs, beamforming, full duplex. There's a lot of innovation that's happening in that area that would allow humans to, collect even more data with our phones and every device that we have around us, IoT, and transmit that data in ways that we've never been able to do before. The change is happening. The change is happening. We at the beginning of time, we were here, right? And you can see throughout history, the printing press and all that was around here. This is where things were happening, right? And then eventually we hit this curve, right? People expect that growth happens linearly. Like this will be your linear growth, right? If things were just moving linearly, but no, right? The growth of data has been exponential, right? We hit this curve, and then we're growing at double, triple the speed every single day, right? Every single day, right? I'll hear statistics of the amount of data that it took for humanity, the amount of time it took for humanity to create data from the beginning of time to about 2010 is done currently within within 2 days or so, something like that, right? Every 2 days we create the same amount of data that it took humanity to create from the dawn of time to 2010, something to that effect. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but just to give you a picture of where we are, just to give you a picture of the reality of what we're experiencing. There's a growth in the amount of data that can be collected, right? All the pictures that you're taking, all the videos that you're recording, right? You know, cave people did not have cell phones. They were walking around and taking pictures of them, you know, hunting, bisons or hunting mastodons and things like that. They didn't have that, right? But today, every little person, every big person, every young and old and from whatever place of the planet, they have cell phones, right? And they're taking pictures and they're sharing those pictures, and we're collecting all this data. And that's where big data really comes into play. This explosion of data, which is called big data, right? Big data doesn't, I've done some presentations on this. Big data doesn't necessarily mean the data is big in itself, right? There are some 5 things that comes into play: volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value, and things like that, right? So big data, of course, the size is big, but it means a lot more. And this is what we're experiencing. This is what we're experiencing. Now, I've taken the pain to really dive deep to explain the origin of data and why this is all relevant. But I'm sure you're asking, but I thought this presentation was about AI. What has this got to do with AI, right? I feel the reason why I'm doing this is because big data is really what has precipitated AI. I've read some articles where people say data is dead, right? And they might say that, you know, as if it's something to be proud of. I'm like, oh, I'm so profound to write an article to say big data is dead, right? To me, that's not saying anything profound to say big data is dead, right? Big data has ushered us into a new reality that still depends on big data. It doesn't mean big data is dead, right? So I can't say, well, because what is the example that I can really use here to say? I can't say the cell phone is dead because I'm not using a flip phone. No, the flip phone has just simply led into a new type of cell phone, and without the flip phone, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are, right? And that underlying technology of being mobile is what is still there. So saying big data is dead to me is not necessarily, you might see that when people say that, I usually just, chuckle at it and move on with the reality. Big data is what has really ushered us into the reality of AI. And we can't really talk about AI in a substantial way without understanding where we're coming from. We're getting to where we are today because there is a lot of data that has been collected, right? Because of the advances that humanity has made, that we can now afford to start not only storing that data, which used to happen in the past, we just store the data, but can start analyzing that data for insights. This is what is powering the systems that we see today. Right. So the better way that I look at it, and I have this slide attributed here, is, we have all these devices as cell phones or computers, and we're hearing about IoT, the Internet of Things, where every device is going to be connected to the internet, right? From your watch, your cell phone, your lawnmower, your refrigerator, your microwave, everything being connected to the internet and all collecting data, right? Now we have all this data that we're collecting. We can store that data at scale, and this is where big data comes into play. And now, in the past, we can only store that data, but what machine learning is doing and what AI is doing, artificial intelligence, is now we can use the techniques that have been developed in AI to analyze that data for rich insight. So there's no point of just collecting data or just taking videos. Right now we can look at that video and be able to say who is in that video, what was the person in that video doing, what were their emotions, right? And as such, we can act on that, right? We can act on that. You have situations with surveillance where you can have cameras all over the place, and this is happening in China. And I'm going to be talking about this once we dive into the State of AI report, where folks in China, they have cameras everywhere, and they can look at it and say, hey, this person is behaving strangely based on the way you walk, right, or things like that, and then they can send police to that area as such. Now we can go into argue about the ethics, is that correct or not. I'm going to talk about ethics in a whole separate video, but this is just to give you an idea of some of the things that are happening. It's a lot of stuff that's happening. It's exciting. It's changing a lot of things. It's changing reality as we know it. And you don't necessarily need to be an AI professional to pay attention to this, because it's going to affect your life, right? You don't necessarily need to be an electrician to understand the need and the value for electricity, right? And that's really where we're getting to be. This is going to be a reality where we're going to have to understand what AI is, not because we necessarily work in that field, but because it's going to impact us, right? I understand electricity and grounding of cable and hot and cable and such, not because I'm an electrician, no, but because, well, in the house, I better understand that, not to go plug something in the wrong wall and set the house on fire, right? That's the reason why we have some basic understanding of electricity or power tools and such. AI is one of those power tools that's going to augment our capabilities, and that's why it's important for us to get those rudimentary basic AI skills. I think that's something that will be required in the future, just like basic reading, right? ABC 1 2 3, right? At some point we're gonna get to that level where people will just be required to have basic AI skills in order to survive and to function efficiently within the society in which we live. This is really exciting. Now, we've seen that collecting data, big data, and AI is really the three things that has ushered us into where we are today. And I really want to put this slide together. It's a little bit of a busy slide, a little bit technical, but for those of you that are business, you can pay attention to the right side. For those of you that are a little bit technical, pay attention to this side, and everybody can pay attention to this side. So what we have here is we have data everywhere. Everywhere we have data, right? We're collecting data from our phones, air conditioner, microwaves are having sensors in there. We're having all this data, right? Even the fan, right? Our watch, our cars are all connected, are all smart. The washing machines, these are all collecting data, right? And in the past, we couldn't. Now we can. We have the infrastructure. We have the tools. This is IoT, Internet of Things. We have the ability to collect this data. Now, what is happening is folks are collecting this data, and the innovation has happened on the technology front, where we have things like Spark, machine learning with TensorFlow, Keras, Theano, you name it, Scikit-learn. There's a lot of things that have happened in from the innovation perspective with deep neural networks and things like that. That has allowed us to not only collect and store this data, which is big data, but we can now go ahead and analyze this data at scale with the technologies that are available, right? And once we do that, we produce products that human beings actually want, right? People want self-driving cars. People want Alexa. They want to talk into Alexa and get what they want with voice recognition, right? There's demand for it. Nest is coming up with smart homes. People are looking for humanoid or robots to interact and play with, right? Like we see the little kid doing here to help around the house. So the way I see it is really a convergence of these three pillars, right? We have the data, we have the technology, and there is a way for it. And that's why AI is really becoming what it is today, right? Hardware has improved, right? Research is happening at scale. All universities, and I'm going to talk about this in one of my other presentations, where there was a huge donation to MIT by Schwartz of Blackstone Capital. I really forget his name. The founder of Blackstone Capital, I believe, something Schwartz, gave this huge donation to MIT to really, and I believe it's MIT, to invest in AI, right? Because as a business person, he was over in China, and we know that China is really a leader in the space of AI, and is almost running away with all the innovations that's happening there. And being a good citizen, not wanting to feel like the US being left behind, he makes this huge donation. And so MIT is thinking about restructuring some of their departments to really put a lot of emphasis around building curriculum and around AI to educate students. So there is a lot of exciting things that's happening in this field, and it's the perfect storm. This is why people are excited. This is what really gets me excited. I wake up in the morning and I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I live in this age. I live in this time where we're seeing all these things in front of us. It's mind-blowing. You have the data, right? Before, people could not do things because they didn't even have the data. You cannot really do AI without data. That's really one of the big problems, right? But now we're collecting that data at scale, and we're still being able to collect all the kind of data we can collect. With 5G, right, it would just take this and times it by 100, right? That's the amount of data. everything can be connected to the internet. Everything can be made to be smart, right? Even the plate you eat from can be made to be smart. The mirror, right? Your couch, everything can be made to be a sensor to collect data, right? You wake up in the morning, you look at your mirror is smart enough to tell you if you're sick, right? By just analyzing your face, right? And it can tell you, well, or you didn't have a good night's sleep, and it can quickly tell your coffee maker to make a stronger coffee than it normally makes, right? And such, right? Your fan can just get the temperature and know to blow stronger or weaker based on temperature. And so everything can be made to be smart and interconnected. That is the reality in which we live in. And that's why AI is very, very exciting and being very, 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 very powerful. You know, now I'll show one more slide, and this is something that I really like talking about. You know, some of the advances. It's seeing us, you know, get things that, you know, we did not even used to get before. You know, and I show this slide where this is from Microsoft. They have a product that can allows us to look at videos. As a professional, being in the field for many years, right, I couldn't ever wake up in the morning and dream of writing a query to query a video and tell me the emotions of the people that are in that video. That just was not even possible at all. You couldn't do it, right? We were used to SQL, structured query language, where you write a query and you get a result, right? You get the result. You say select from a table where, you know, show me my sales for yesterday. But now, with all this technology that's happening, again, this is from Microsoft, right? Problems like this that we thought were wicked are doable. We can say, take this video and show me, you know, people were smiling in that video, and it can analyze it and give it to us. And I'm going to go through a lot of these types of scenarios as we dive a little bit deeper into the State of AI report in the next series of videos. But this, guys, this is game changing. This is why people are really excited, right? Organizations were sitting on top of videos. They had no idea what to do with those videos. Now they can. Now they can. And this is very, very, very powerful. And just to take a little bit of a side step here, to do a little bit of a plug on in terms of what we're talking about here, I'm gonna go and show, and I talked about this in the beginning, and just for full disclosure, this application is my application. So for those of you that are going to be checking it out, this is an application that I wrote, and I like to show it just in the context in which we're talking about, right? In the past, when we watch a video, right, we could only watch a video sequentially, right? Like this is the video that I showed a little bit earlier. The way that we watched this video was, you know, you come in, you sit down, and you have to, you know, watch the video from point A to point B. But now with this extension, 3Ly AI extension, you can come in, you can analyze the video, and it can use AI to get deep insights about the video. So let's actually go ahead and analyze the video. It's a little bit slow here, bear with me. So bear with me here for a second. So we can go ahead, we can click analyze, and we can analyze this video for deep insights into what this video is about, right? Before, you had to go ahead and watch this entire video to understand what the video is doing. So I really recommend, for those of you that watch a lot of video content, right, it's paid, of course. You can pay to analyze it, and it can index the video. It can pull out all those insights that we talked about from that perspective. 3Ly AI, again, using artificial intelligence behind the scenes. Let me actually go ahead and show an example of a video that has been walked through. So we're going to be looking at one of the videos.
The following content is
provided. An
provided
example of one of the videos that has been done with 3Ly AI.
under a
And just to
Creative
give you an
Commons.
idea, this video was a lecture at MIT. And just imagine it's about an hour-long lecture. As a student, you're coming in and you're trying to watch this. Previously, we have to physically sit down for hours and hours to watch a video like this. Right now, with the power of AI, once we've analyzed and indexed the video, we can simply come in and click and see the key topics of what was talked about very precisely, right? And we can now drill down into that location with precision to see what exactly is going on. Let's see emotions. We can see the different emotions that are in that video. Joy, I can see just the places where there's joy in that video, and I can go ahead and play to watch just that specific piece of the video where it was analyzed to be joyful. So these are some of the, I wouldn't play that, but these are some of the advances we're seeing. We can see the timeline of the video all translated into, you know, time by line, you know, transcribe for us. We can look at that in a different language. So these are some of the advances that we're seeing. So we can switch that to a different language, French, for example. But I wouldn't go too much into that. Get the extension, Thrilly extension. The link will be below. So get that extension so that it's a companion to this video series that I'm going to be making. But that said, we are getting into a new dawn is being ushered. Things are getting really exciting, both for professionals, users, consumers, educators, leaders, countries. Everybody's getting in on the game, and it's an exciting time to be in the field of AI. It's really, really exciting. I can't tell you guys how you know, transformational this is. Now, before we wrap up here, we're gonna go through 2 or so slides to wrap up. I want us to go through this and guess to see if anyone can guess what this is on the screen, right? Just take a moment, pause for a second, and see if you can guess on the screen what we have here, right? And I got this from just a quick Google search. So I've heard things like people saying this is a transformer. People are saying it's a refrigerator. Some might have said it looks like a game, of some type. Some said it looks like a bomb. I don't know why some people would say it looks like a bomb. But if somebody is very keen, you might see it says here IBM, right? So IBM doesn't make bombs as far as I know, right? So if you guess that this was a hard drive, guys, you're correct. This is a hard drive. But more importantly, this is a 5 megabyte hard drive, 5 megabytes. So this is not even up to 1 gigabyte. It's not even up to 1 terabyte, right? This is a 5 megabytes. Megabytes, it's like, my phone would not even do anything with 5 megabytes, right? If that's all I had as a storage. But guys, this is 5 megabytes in the 1960s, right? This is what people would salivate over. This is what people were excited over. Just for a second, pick up your phone, take a look at your phone, and guess how much memory or how much storage your phone has compared to this. So one of the reason why I show this in concluding with this presentation is that, you know, some of the advances that we see, people look at them from a mindset that is very linear, right? And I don't blame anyone who thinks that way, because human beings tend to be linear. We look at what we see today, and then we kind of draw a straight line and say, okay, tomorrow we're going to increase by 1%, 2%, 3%. That's how we kind of think about it, and then that's how things will move. But as we know, innovation rarely happens that way, right? Then what happens is we have exponential growth. So we start with something that it looks premature, it looks like, you know, it's not exciting, and it looks kind of goofy, and people are like, why would you spend, you know, all this time building something like this to store just 5 megabytes, right? Why don't you just write it in books, and that's all we will use, right? Books is the future, right? Kind of thing. But we know that, thank God for humanity in having belief in the future, that, you know, despite the fact that people look at things like this, we turn to innovate, we turn to get better, we turn to make those advances that are very exponential. If you look at your phone today, right, it has more memory than I'm sure thousands of these machines would have had at the time. No one could foresee that. I'm not sure any of these guys that were sitting there could predict where we would be today, right? And just imagine us sitting here today in 2000s, the late 2000s, 2019, 2030, also trying to predict the future, where things will go. All we know for sure is that we have something in our hands that's very exciting, AI. Right, some of the predictions that AI makes, or some of the way it works, could look rudimentary, right? Maybe you can look at Sophia, the robot that we looked at very earlier, and say, but that's kind of silly. She doesn't even have a smile, you know, this and that. She kind of sounds like a robot, kind of thing. Just imagine, with an exponential mindset, what will happen, you know, when things change into the future, right? You look at deep learning, and deep learning might have its problem. It solves, you know, it's beating the humans at StarCraft, and I'm going to cover all of this. And people are saying, but that's not exciting, that's not cool. Guys, just step back and put on your exponential hat, right? And this is, somebody really needs to invent a hat like that, right? Exponential thinking, and buy a hat that, you know, when somebody is thinking linearly, just say, no, guy, put on your exponential hat and start thinking at an exponential level. What happens when we don't double, right? We don't increase by percentages. we quadruple, we 10x, 10 times. It's not just 1% increase or 2% increase. It's 10%, 10 times increase. There's a difference between percentages and once you're xing your growth. So I don't want to belabor this point, but this thing is just to really tell us that it's exciting. Change is coming, and we can either be on the sidelines and witness that happen, or we can dive in and be part of that change and be part of that innovation that happens. Just to say, this is, like I said, this was about 5 megabytes, and this is what 512 gigabytes, and there's that terabytes right now that exists, this small compared to that. So things are changing. Now the future belongs to AI. The future belongs to AI. When we think about AI, we think about robots. Again, like I said, robots don't have to be humanoid, but AI is not just about robots. AI is about opportunities, right? AI is the central part of everyday life. That's what's going to happen. If it hasn't happened yet, it will happen. It will happen soon, right? From our phones, our watches, our house, the refrigerator, everything is connected to the internet. Everything will have some form of intelligence at the edge computing, and that's something that I'll talk about. And this could present our greatest opportunity, or it could be a big concern for us. It just depends on how quickly or how efficiently we can we can realize first. It's important to realize that these are opportunities and take advantage of it, right? Otherwise, we can be looking at the big concern here, right? And there are legitimate concerns. We're going to talk about people losing jobs, right? What if everything's automated? Would people that are cleaning houses need jobs, right? If everything in the factory is automated, would workers be needed? So these are certain challenges that we can see, but we first of all have to realize those opportunities and take them, and then deal with those challenges as we see. So the next piece, and this is the last slide we're going to leave with, is this presentation is not meant to just be a hype up, hurrah, let's, kumbaya and be excited about technology or AI for the sake of AI. No, right? For our personal lives, there is a lot of value that AI presents, right? And we can talk about it all day long in terms of the innovation and how AI can benefit us as individuals. But also from an industry perspective, according to McKinsey, 40%, according to McKinsey, the impact of AI is going to affect businesses, right? Businesses increasing productivity by up to 40% and enable people to make better decisions and make more efficient use of their time. This is tangible value that can affect bottom lines. I know some executives, some businesses will not pay attention to something if it doesn't affect the bottom line. This is evidence, right? And that's why, as we go through this series of videos and talk about AI, it's not just going to be all theory. It's going to be backed up by evidence. So guys, thank you all for watching. I really want to appreciate you sticking around. We've covered a lot. Going back to where we started. So we started with the state of AI, which is really what we're going to be diving through today. This report. This is what we're going to be looking at in the next series of videos. I am so excited to make these videos and make them available here on YouTube. And before I even go in, I just want to thank Nathan and Ian for creating this report. I had a great time reading it, and I'm really looking forward to breaking it down so we can have some very robust, some honest, and some deep discussion around AI and the impact that it can have for us as individuals, as professionals, as industries, as leaders, as students, as politicians, whatever walk of life we partake in. So very great stuff, guys. Please make sure you subscribe. I'm gonna be releasing this, like I said, in a series of videos, and so if you subscribe once those videos are released, you're gonna get it. And if there's somebody that you feel that would get value out of this, make sure you forward this to them. All the links and resources that I talked about in this video, I'll leave them in the description below. And if something is not in the description below, feel free to send me an email. I can make these slides available if needed as well, just to give us some understanding so you can directly see them for yourself. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.